Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to day 23 of my 31 days of Halloween themed drawing tutorials, all right here on YouTube. Today's video, I'm gonna show you how you can draw this cool looking cartoon zombie from start to finish. It's all in real time, no time lapse, no edits. So if you wanna follow along step by step with me, keep watching. All right guys, so let's draw a zombie. Starting out, I'm using a 4000 by 4000 300 DPI canvas. For my brush, I'm gonna start out using my HB pencil to sketch. This is part of my pencil pack that's available now. And for my color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made. So if you wanna download this, follow along exactly with the same colors that I'm using, you can get this from my website, bjdell.com, underneath the YouTube reference material section, which I'll link it down in the description below too. But just save the color palette to your camera roll, go in here to the wrench icon and go to add, insert a photo. It'll bring it into Procreate here as a separate layer, and then just go in and long press each of the colors on there and you're good to go. So let's start. To begin with, I'm going to use black here. Once again, just using that HB. And I'm going to start out here just with an oval to get my head started here. Just going in really kind of loose and quick with some basic shapes to get the start of my zombie. So get the body here coming down. I think this is going to be kind of 3/4 perspective, and then maybe having the head kind of turned like he's looking behind him over his shoulder here. He'll have his arms kind of outstretched here, and then we can kind of build off of there. So let's bring in a neck here. Pull the arms down here. One back here. Like so. Get some basic shapes in here for where the legs are going to go. So just a couple of ovals here. And then kind of connecting those in with sharper lines to define where the pants are going to be. We can have his other leg coming back here. Shoe down here. Another shoe back in here, maybe kind of scrunched up like he's taking a step, putting some weight on that foot back there. Get in here, get the arms and the hands in here. One hand here coming out with the thumb there. Fingers come out there. Same thing here, having this hand come down and out and around. Kind of like that. So there's that. Let's get the circles in here for the ears, where those go. Get the eyes in here, maybe like a big oval one here. Maybe the other one here kind of more mean and angry, so it's got that kind of comedic cartoon look to it. A couple of eyebrows here. Mouth down in this area here. Coming back up with a lip and some teeth here. Nostrils in here. We'll pull down the jaw here into the chin. Back up and around here. For the head, maybe have this kind of split open to where he's got his brain popping out. Not in a super crazy horror way. We'll make it kind of cartoony here. Nothing too scary, but I think that looks pretty cool like that. And then maybe have some dirt piles down here. Have like a tombstone here. Maybe he's just crawled out of that grave there. So that's going to be our basic shape for a zombie. So now we're ready to go in and start doing our inks. So to do this, I'm going to go back up to my layers, make a new layer. This layer here, I'm going to go ahead and drop down the opacity of the sketch layer so that we can draw on top of this one. And then for my brush, I'm going to go ahead and use part of my cartooning set, just my standard Inker Streamline. It's going to go on this layer. First, I need to decide where the light source is coming from. And I think on this one, I'm probably going to have it come down from this direction here. So lighter lines here towards the front, heavier lines towards the back to represent where the shadows are. So I'm going to come in here and just start with my lines, trying to get one of these back lines of the heavier section kind of figured out to see, okay, do I want to go bigger with the brush or smaller? And I think that's actually pretty good. So then I'm going to start just bringing these lines down and around, heavier here towards the back. There, up and towards the front. Here, maybe kind of have the eye have a little bag underneath there. That one a little bit thinner there. Extra lines coming down here around. The eyebrow in here kind of heavier towards the bottom, wider towards the top. That needs to be a little bit lighter of a line there. It's pretty good. Heavier here towards the back still. There we go. Bring in the inside of the ear around here. Got that. Let's go ahead and do the other eye here. For this, I think I just make my brush a little bit bigger and draw eyeball here. Just holding down to lock it in. Drop my size back down now. Some pupils in here. Iris around there. If you can hear that thunder, it's starting to get crazy outside. Hopefully you don't have like a crazy storm and lose power or anything. Got to keep this going. Nostrils coming in here. Get this lip here. Bring those teeth around. Extra lines in there just for some details. Drag and drop that in there. Get a little dimple in here on the chin. Get this other eyebrow in here. Once again, you can see here, I'm not really tracing that exact sketch that I did. It's more just the overall suggestion of where everything goes. Don't worry about making sure every single line matches up right with the sketch. So there's that. I think, though, I do want to make zooming out, since this perspective is 3/4. This eyebrow is pretty big over here, so this one needs to be even bigger because of the perspective. So I'm going to try that one more time here. Bring it further around there. There we go. I think that looks better. And kind of fine tune that in the back there. Maybe up here in the front too. All right, so there we go. We got that. Let's get an ear here on the side. Once again, you can see that ear is almost floating out there in the middle of nowhere now. That just shows you how close I don't really stick to the sketch. Get the brain coming around here, kind of heavier here, once again towards the back, with it being further away from the light source. And then as it comes up and around, it starts to get a little bit of a lighter line weight there towards the front. We can do some extra little ridges in here too, just to add some more details. Like I said, just keeping it cartoony, not super crazy there. Don't want to get too horrified. Get the shirt there, bring this arm here, around. Kind of heavier here towards the back, lighter here as it comes up towards the front. go. And then for this arm, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer, so that way I can draw over top of the lines that I've already done without worrying about affecting those. See, that way it just makes it a lot easier doing it like that. Then I can come back in here and just erase that overlap. I don't have to worry about trying to erase stuff that I've already done and then hitting other lines, being a pain. It just makes it so much easier. Thinking here too, I'm going to kind of have the shirt ripped a little bit, kind of have some of that skin showing underneath, and then maybe having like a wound here coming out too, to where you can see some insides there. So there we go. Let's go ahead and go to the legs now. Get these knocked in. Kind of crease coming up there. Heavier here towards the back. Have that pulled down a little bit further there. There we go. Go back up here to the hands now and get these in here in the arms. One arm and hand there, and get the other one over here. All right, so there we go. There's that. Let's go down here to the feet now. Just kind of pull the legs here so you can kind of see those. Then maybe come in here with a big tennis shoe. Some laces here up the front into the tongue. Like that. Bring this down a little bit further. Kind of shell toe there and some more laces here coming down. Another line there for the heel of the shoe. Same thing here, kind of having the leg come down. Once again, having this shoe come back up, kind of like he's stepping on this, putting some weight on this back foot. Coming up into the tongue there. Connect this a little bit better here in the back. I'm gonna have the leg come down a little bit different here. Let's see the back of the foot first. Having the leg come into there. All right, there we go. So we've got that. Let's go ahead then. I'm going to make, let's see. I'm going to make a, actually I won't even make a new layer. I'll just go on to this top layer that we did the arm, and I'll use this to kind of do the dirt we've got down here. Just kind of have the little mounds coming around, kind of like we did the brain up there. Having that kind of trail back, and then once again, just coming in here with some extra little piles of dirt. Like that. Now, since we have this on the separate layer, once again, we can just go back in here and erase these overlaps. Makes it super quick, super easy. And there we go. And then let's go ahead, pinch those together. To merge them, I'm going to do one more layer then for the tombstone here in the back. And we've got that in there, so we can erase those overlaps now with that. Go ahead and pinch these together. Well, let's just do a cross on there. And then maybe just some little dots in here, add in some textures to that. All right, so there we go. Let's go ahead and turn off our sketch layer now, and that's what we're left with. We've got our completed design here. I think with this, I'm going to go back in, just pulling out and looking at it a little bit, make the thickness of the lines back here on the hands just a little bit more, since that's furthest away from the light source. Those look a little thin right now. So just pulling up and around on those. Kind of bring home that light source that we're going for even more. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do the coloring. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and make a new layer right here, plus. So we've got a new layer. We're going to set this top layer to reference. That's going to allow us to drag and drop all the colors then onto the layer 3 that we just made. Makes it super fast, super easy, and non-destructive. So the first color here I've got is this grayish blue. We'll just do that for the base color of the zombie himself. Get all these colored in here. And I just saw one of those overlaps that I missed down there. Erase that real quick, and you're going to see why that's kind of a pain, because you're going to start to hit that line and it's not as easy as it is just doing it like we did before. So that's why I always do those 2 different layers. That kind of explains that. Same thing here, got a little bit of overlap there. So going back in and doing this by hand kind of sucks. It's a little bit harder than it needs to be. That's why you can just make that other layer and then erase. So much easier doing it that way. I think there's even an overlap there I missed too. All right, so there we go. So next up, let's see, we've got him pretty much colored in. We've got that little part in the body. Let me get that real quick. Then I'm going to switch over to my darker color next to that for the eyebrows. And that one I accidentally hit the line. Next up, I've got the yellow. That's what we're going to use for the eyes here. And then this green color for the irises. And then I'm going to select, just long pressing here with the white. I'm going to select white to get in here for those little kind of highlights there. So there's that. Coloring the nostrils there with that blue. Back to that yellow that I used for the eyes. That's going to be for the teeth. Next up, we'll use the pink for the brain. And let's go ahead and use that on the shoes too. Kind of ties in those to the rest of the design. There's another small overlap I missed there too. My goodness. Slipping. And it's always good to go in there and make those adjustments and erase before you start dragging and dropping the colors in. Because if you go back and change later, if you erase something that was there initially, that's going to erase that section, so the color isn't going to be there because it's using that as a reference. So if you do a lot of that back and forth, you're going to have to go in and refill in colors too, which is kind of a pain. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and do, next up we've got brown here. Let's go ahead and use brown for the pants. There's that. So we got this darker blue. I'm going to use that for the shirt. And then also for that part of the shirt that's hanging down there. We're going to go back down here and use the brown for the dirt. And I think I'm going to see how this looks. I think I'm going to switch this around. I think I'm going to change the shirt to the brown and the pants to the blue, just because I don't want that brown overlapping down here with the dirt of the pants. So I think that looks a little bit better doing it that way. So let's do that. And then going back in here with the gray, use that for the tombstone. And that's going to pretty much be our color flats. Last thing I need to do, I'm going to turn off the background here so you can see we've got to get the white in here for the shoes. It's a lot easier with this, just turning off that background color so you can see everything. Just hit these little parts by hand here. All right, so there we go. Let's turn that back on now, and that's what we're left with. So now we're gonna start on the shadows and highlights. So to do this, we're gonna go ahead, make a new layer above this one. We're gonna set this one to clipping mask so we can color in directly on this layer. It's not gonna go outside whatever we have colored in here, but it's gonna stay a separate layer, which is gonna allow us to adjust the opacity. Then I'm gonna switch over to just my standard inker non-streamline. For my shadow, I've got this kind of dark red color here. That's what we're gonna use for the shadow. And then I'm just gonna come in here and start to do just a pretty big section of the design, just so I can get a lot of different colors in here, so I can see how the shadow is gonna look against all these different colors. I've got a part there that I missed on the back of the head. Color that part in. I'm back to my shadows now. Bring in a shadow down here around the eye. And this I'm just doing really fast, really sloppy. I'm gonna go in and make fine-tuned adjustments to this here after we get it to where we want it to be as far as the opacity goes. So in this stage, I just do it really rough just to get a decent amount filled in here. Do that, get a lot of this back in here filled in. Just because of the way that that light source is coming in, a lot of that's going to be filled in here in the back. Shoes here, and maybe crossed here, a little bit here. And I think that's good enough that we can see exactly where we're at with everything. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up to my layers. I'm going to hit the N for the blend mode, and I'm just going to start dragging this down to the left to see exactly where it looks good at. And I think probably right there about 30%, maybe a little bit lower, maybe about 20%. It looks a little different on the TV monitor as I'm doing this than it does on the iPad. So the 30 looked decent up on the TV. Down here, it looks a little too dark. So now that we've got that, I'm gonna go in and, like I said, just start to kind of fine tune this. So I've got a decent amount back here colored in. Got some overlaps here in the eyes that I need to get rid of for right now. Get the insides here of the nose. Looks like there's a little spot missing there from the inside of the nose. Get that colored in real quick. Back of the teeth here. You're just gonna see me jump back and forth between the brush and the eraser. With my eraser, I'm just using the standard inker streamline for the eraser. I usually try to stick with whatever brush I'm using. That's the eraser that I use as well. These in here. Shadow there along the bottom of the eyebrow. It looks like there's part of the eyebrow missing too. That in there. Keep dragging this around until I've got it looking like I want it to. And then certain areas like here, I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit of that shadow. Not that there's a highlight there, but it's one of those things, if there's too much of a shadow, the viewer is not going to be able to see that the area is shadowed in. So just doing some removals like this kind of helps bring home the fact that there is that shadow there. I think I'll probably bring a couple just down here around the bottom of the eye as well. I'm going to turn this back to just standard inker, turn the streamline off. When I'm doing thick, kind of quick lines like this, I really like to have the streamline option turned off. It just makes for a smoother kind of transition from each of those tapers. There's that. Let's go ahead and add some more in here. This up and around. Shadow here underneath the arm here. Pull it off the top here. this come out more of a like a tapered part like that. There we go. Bringing some around here too. Once again, just kind of these quick little squiggles for the effect of the fabric there. And then bringing some around here too with the way that those folds come in there. Make that a little bit smaller, brush size wise. There we go. Pulling one down here. Maybe a couple of squiggles there for the fabric folds. And then back here, once again, I'm going to come in and start to erase just a little bit. I'm going to switch back now to my streamlined version. Just kind of pull in some eraser parts on this just to get rid of that, so you can see that, yes, those are two different colors. Then down here, you're going to see I'm going to do some squiggles here to kind of build this up along the bottom. We can even pull up some in there like that too. Some down here. I think that looks good. Now let's get some removed here around the hands, because those are really heavy right now. Get a few parts taken away. Once again, it just brings home that message that there is two different colors here. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Let's get some in on the tombstone now. Let's bring a nice taper around there. And then down here, which we got to change the color of that rip now too. I just noticed that. Let's get that changed back to that brown. And back to my shadows. All right, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. Get another erased part right here on the shoe or the foot. All right. And there we go. Last thing I want to do shadow wise is I want to come in here, make a new shadow layer, set this to clipping mask. I'm going to come back up here and let's go to black, and I'm just going to draw in a shadow here around the eyeball. I'm going to set that back to streamline. And just get a shadow in here. And then once again, coming up here to my adjustments, dropping down the opacity of that, and just getting a nice little shadow around that back part. A couple little dots in there too for some details. So there we go with that. I think that looks good. So let's go ahead now and start our actual highlights. One final thing though, before we do that, I want to go back in here, selecting this darker color here. I'm going to go back in on my main color flats layer and just color in the inside part of this here so it looks darker. Since we already have that shadow there, we can't necessarily go in and do it. We can make it a new shadow layer and do it that way. It's totally up to you how you want to do it, but that's a quick little cheat to get off the ground quicker with that. And I just noticed too, I want to go back into the brain. I didn't get to the brain. Granted, I had it done with the beginning stages, but these can be a lot better done than what we had him, that test that we did. Just get some areas in here done, and then we'll move on. Once again, come back in with the eraser. Just erasing a few parts in the shadowed area. Mostly on the tops of these, kind of brings that home a little bit more. All right, so there we go. Now we're gonna move on to highlights. So to do this, let's go ahead and make a new layer. Going up to our color palette here, or our layers menu, we're gonna go ahead and make a new layer. It still sets clipping mask, and then we're gonna use this bright kind of yellowish white, and we're just gonna come in here and hit the front of the design where that light source is coming from. Just kind of following this around. Get some there. Let's go ahead and hit maybe the top of the eyebrow here, top of the ear. Front of the face here coming down. Bottom lip there, maybe do a circular highlight there. The back of the shirt, back of this leg, some of that part of the shirt there, the top of the tombstone here, maybe some of these here as well. Go, maybe even hit just a portion of this one here, of the sleeve coming around. All right, there we go. So now, once again, I'm gonna go back in here, go to my layers, and then slide down the opacity of that. Got it set to about, let's see, yeah, about 60%. I think it looks pretty good there. Got a decent amount of highlight there. And then just start to bring in some extra lines down and around to give some more details to the highlight. Some kind of oval highlights up here too in the brain to kind of make that pop a little bit more. And maybe a couple dots there. Here on the shirt, maybe bring it back in just a couple of those kind of the fabric squiggles there to show the folds. I want to get those just a little bit more tapered there. Closer in. I think that looks good. And then I think I'm going to come in back with my black here, and on my main layer of my inks, I'm just going to come in here and just kind of add in some extra details here to the face. A couple more dots and lines. Some in here too with the eyebrow. Same thing here, kind of pulling up some tapered ones there. Some extra bags under the eyes here. Maybe some extra cross hatching here as well. I want to come back in here too and just make this a little bit shadowed there on the back side, so that looks a little bit more three-dimensional. All right, there we go. Last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm not going to go crazy with the background on this. That's basically going to be our background layer on this design. So I'm going to go ahead and sign this guy now. And there we go. Day 23 of my 31 days of Halloween themed drawing tutorials. Hopefully you guys liked today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. Still a few days left in the month, so there's going to be more of these coming. If you guys take part in these challenges too, I want to see what you come up with. So definitely share your work online, either Instagram or Twitter. Tag me at BJ Dell, and then also you can post them on Facebook. I've got a group over there that I made called Keep Creating, a group for artists by artists, place where you can post these or any other work that you've got. Give feedback, get feedback. It's an awesome place to be. Want you guys to be a part of it as well. For me, I can be found online, bjdell.com, as well as my podcast, Make Money with Your Art, available wherever you listen to fine podcasts. And that's it for today. I will be back tomorrow. Will you? I hope so. So until then, keep creating.